special. Good. Everything I'm not going to repeat, but that's okay. So, air trajectory. So, anybody here new to air trajectory? Yeah. And I think we'll explain what's new for 25, and I'll explain fundamentals. I understand that last year this was a little controversial. Okay, so one experience that. So the reason that I was recruited was to hopefully make sure this goes better. Okay. Uh, up. Yeah, I call that recruiting. Okay. So hopefully we're going to intentionally make sure this is smoother than it was last year. I know the disappointment of kids not being able to compete. So that's really, in my mind, a kind of a tragedy. So apologies for me, just because I wasn't here. I was in Mexico vacation, but so it goes. Let's see. So the part you can do and the parents can do is know the rules. Now, I would agree that the first reading of the rules is kind of complicated, but stay with it, study it, and I think it becomes pretty simple. And as a matter of fact, I only have 12 slides, so I don't think it's that complicated. What I have for you is I laid out a course on the floor coming in, and there's some great videos online of previous competitions, but there's going to be some differences, and I'm going to point those out. So your part, of course, is strict compliance with the rules, and that's usually not a problem. The problem is inconsistency within the judging.
Correct.
And I'm a stickler at. Chris, did you say something?
I said correct.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So, for 2025, the device is impounded with your calibration data. Okay. So that usually happens at 7 o'clock. And your other supplies are not impounded. So you get tools and supplies to fix your device, 2 class 3 calculators. You want to look that up. It says what features are allowed. Those are not impounded. Okay. All participants, including the supervisors, must wear eye protection. Okay. The rule strictly states if you don't have eye protection, you can't come. Okay. And then the participants the student must be able to answer questions regarding their design, construction, and operation. And I think the supervisor should ask those questions. Those are designed to make sure the student actually participated in the construction of the device and knows how it works. Usually that's not a problem. Okay, sir. I'm going to allow questions at any time, including online, Chris, if you have one.
Okay.
Any questions so far?
No.
So the launch device is typically a cube. It must fit in a 85 by square cube for Division B and 75 for Division C. So you can see that for the high school students, they're more restricted. Okay, and that will be checked before competition is allowed, but usually between impoundment and competition. Okay, so the simple principle: the launching force must be entirely supplied by gravitational potential energy. That means dropping a weight equal to less than or equal to 5 kilograms. That's, I don't know, 11, 12 pounds for Division B, which is middle school, and 3.5 kilograms for Division C. And the device converts that gravitational or potential energy, is converted to air pressure to launch a projectile. It's usually a ping pong ball, and golf balls are prohibited. Can be a tennis ball. It's something. Well, actually, a ping pong ball is hard, but it's not. It's not going to make a dent in something.
It's not dense.
What's that, Chris?
I said it's not dense.
Right. And then, is any questions about that? So, most kids use some sort of a bladder. I've seen them use a 2-liter drink bottle. There are all kinds of ways to do it. And at the end of this, I'm going to go online and show you some contraptions that kids have made that are online. Now, let's see if I have that in a later slide. No. So I'm going to say that all of the let me back up. What we have found, and the national organization has found, is that the kids are so good that we have to make the competition a little harder each year. And so the changes for 25 are kind of important. The first target is going to be elevated. Okay. And think about it. The parabola, now they have to compute for the near target some landing spot that's off the ground. The far target is still on the ground, which means that I have to come up with a contraption that can change the height of the near target. So in the rules, it tells you for what kind of competition, what those heights are. But as you get to national, it gets harder and harder. So that near target will go higher from regional, state to national competitions. So keep that in mind if they advance. But the one that we host here is a state competition. It'll follow the state guidelines in your handout. The other change that's significant, and you'll see this in the videos, is how you start the contraption, the device. They are strictly going to enforce that the starting mechanism must be enabled with the eraser on a number 2 pencil. So what that means is that I take a pencil and push something that activates the device. You'll see a lot of kids have a rope that they let go of. That won't be allowed. Okay. There are other ways. So that mechanically is going to be tough for a middle schooler. Okay.
I have a question on that.
Yep.
So now that was the one thing that I did not see anywhere in the rules, and we read multiple times because last year they had to be so many centimeters away from the device when launching. This one with the pencil, they have to be in the same area as the device, correct?
That's correct.
Okay, because that was not specified on there, and I mean, you assume that's true, but we just wanted to double check that and make sure.
Yeah. So what you're saying is outlined on the floor is where the device is placed. they certainly can be within the box to launch
Yeah,
their device. They just cannot touch anything but the number 2 pencil.
correct.
And the number 2 pencil can only touch the device to start it. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Go ahead.
In the B rules, the pencil may be the release mechanism itself.
So I'm not sure what that.
So could you, give the kid a pencil and they use it somehow as a release?
I don't understand that.
When you would tie the string around it. Yeah. Like with the pencil. Yeah. That's what I'm saying.
Well, that's a good point. Where did you see that? Which
It's in the whole pretty correct, and now the number of
3F.
so.
All right, so
You'd like to see that, pencil out. I'm not liking the idea that kids being that close to the device would probably by 10 down others on something that pops or close.
well, in F it says, all right, so just a fine point, if I read F explicitly without adding anything to it, the competitors must design the device to trigger by using any part of a unsharpened number 2 pencil with an unused eraser provided by the event supervisor. So they can't have it on the device if it hasn't been provided by the event supervisor. Okay.
Something that's integral to the project.
To activate and release a release mechanism for the falling mass. So the pencil activates a release mechanism.
But then the next sentence, pencil may be the release mechanism itself.
And then the next sentence, the device must remain in the ready to launch configuration without being touched until triggered by the number 2 pencil. So,
I couldn't hear her question.
you want to say it louder?
It's muffled.
Essentially, we're having trouble understanding, Chris, whether the number 2 pencil is a part of the device or not part of the device.
So
go ahead.
We tried that at our first practice with an old device from last year that had it had a string on it, and instead of pulling a pin and it flying out, we had it tethered to the device. So it basically had like a hitch pin. You pull it, it would release. We tried tying the string around the pencil and pulling it, and we couldn't get an accurate pull. Also, we were concerned about if the event supervisor gives you the pencil, then the student has to tie that around or hook that to the pencil somehow. So that was kind of where we didn't understand that part either.
So I think, and I may press this onward that rule is not very clear, but it seems to me the cleanest is not making the number 2 pencil a part of the device and just pushing a release mechanism on the device.
Yeah, like a gate latch.
Yes, that's armed and ready to release the weight, awaiting for the number 2 pencil to push a lever or whatever releases the weight.
Correct.
Well, that part of the design is probably the most mechanically intensive part of the design.
Yeah.
But also, depending on how you set up your weights and heights, would give the more precise uh, force to the mechanism. Correct, Chris?
Correct.
Okay. So, um,
You use the pencil and knock out a pen.
it could, but I don't know how you would make the pencil a part of the mechanism. Go ahead. Speak very loudly so Chris can hear you.
Also, to back in the pen, maybe you hold it for
So,
yeah, right, yeah. Kids are all too close to that. Where still does the 10-pound device that falls. I'm just thinking of the device we had 10 years ago, and I was going, that thing is hit and bounce go like this.
all right. So are we, while I don't feel comfortable with that, my advice is that the number 2 pencil be independent of the device. That's
Yes.
my advice. Okay. Even though it's allowed, I don't know how that would work. Okay. But if you show up and you want to do it that way, it's perfectly within the rules. Okay. And I'm usually, my allowance is let the kids compete fairly. And it's all about competing. Usually the judges are in the room or the other parents. So, right?
Yes.
Yep. All right. 2 shots to 2 targets. The change this year is the near target is elevated. And these distances are for state competition that will be here in. So a regional has different rules and a national has different rules. So it'll be elevated off the floor 1 to 1.5 meters. So that's 3 to 4 feet off the ground. Roughly this table height. Okay. That near target is 2 to 8 meters, 6 to 25, 21 feet, 25 feet from the start.
Question.
Yes.
This is our first time doing this. How do you find out the regional send out their specifications? That this is for
So the day of, actually, it will be announced prior to 8 a.m. And that's why the kids have to have practice data, because they have to calibrate their device to know how to change it for the target distances. They have to impound, so they have to make those changes. Yes. So that's a part of building the device so that they can dial in what they need. Chris, it sounds like you've done it before.
Yes, sir. I did storm the castle for a couple of years, and then we did air trajectory last year.
Okay. And so that part of the design of the device is pretty important.
Yes, sir. You need to have your adjustments.
Yep. And that can be both with height of the weight and the amount of the weight.
And the angle of the barrel.
Yep. Your aiming device. Okay, yes,
The third target is going to be 1 to 1.5 meters to the 8 away. And the far target, is it going to be like 2 more meters past that?
yes, on the ground.
So what is the nearest distance that the far target provides?
It would be 4 meters because they have to be 2 meters apart.
They're gonna be able to hit it anywhere between 2 and 8 meters. No, 2 and 10, because if somebody chooses.
It's the center of the targets, though. And I put a course out in the hallway that we'll go look at here shortly. Chris, I'm going to bring the computer. Maybe you can see it, but
Okay.
we should be able to talk.
What was her question on the second shot? Whenever they talk, it's broken up, so I can't understand.
So the far target is going to be on the ground 4 to 10 meters from.
It's always 2 meters from the near target.
Yes.
It can be up to 8 meters away.
Yep. Okay.
Well,
No,
if your target is 8 meters away, then it's another 2 meters away. Could it be up to 10 meters?
so that's a good question. The marked centers of the targets must be between 2 and 8 meters in front of the launch area. So the far target cannot be further than 8 meters away. Okay, but they have to be 2 meters apart. Usually the distance isn't hard. I think they can launch them much further than that.
Yes.
It's detuning them to be able to go shorter is the hard part. Okay. Would you agree with that, Chris?
Yes, sir.
All right. So another rule is the bucket shot. So some of the kids are so good that in order to add more points to the score, they can declare a bucket shot, which means it's a smaller target. It's the standard Home Depot 5-gallon bucket. Okay. There's a picture of it in one of the videos. If you hit the bucket, any surface, you get, I've forgotten, 200 points. And if you hit the inside bottom of the bucket, you get an additional 300 points. Okay. So a bucket shot, let me read it from the rules. Yeah. 300 points additional. So you get 200 for hitting the bucket, any surface, and you get an additional 300 points for a total of 500 points if you hit the inside bottom of the bucket. Without hitting the wall, yep, it's like a swish in basketball, right? Outside, inside, yes. Okay, so here it is. Target and bucket distances are announced after impact. Okay. Any questions? Like I said, reading the rules seems complicated. It was to me, but I think it becomes clearer once you've sat with the rules long enough. Okay. So high score wins, and the closest of two shots. So it's the closest, it's the best of two shots for the far near target and the far target, plus the bucket shot. So the near target 200 minus the distance that they landed from the center of the target. 400 minus the distance plus the bucket shot. Okay, so obviously if you hit the bullseye, you get a 0 distance, which 4,000 minus 0 means you get the total of 4,000 points. You actually can get negative scores. If you're further than 4 meters away, it'd be a negative number. Okay. Chris probably knows this, but the targets will all have sand or kitty litter.
Yep.
And the purpose of that is to produce a divot when it hits so that we can have a fair measurement. Does that make sense? Okay. Chris, have you ever actually competed in air trajectory?
Me personally?
Yes,
No.
or anybody here?
I've only coached.
Yeah. So, well, I meant coaching.
I've coached and I've ran an event.
Okay. It is the question I wanted to ask anybody is it hard to see a divot produced by a ping pong ball?
No.
Okay. Okay. So I haven't actually competed, so I'm wondering.
Yeah, I've ran the event at our school, and you can see it perfectly fine.
Okay. As long as you rake the course, right? Rake the sand bunker.
Correct.
So I've already discussed with the staff here how we're going to build an elevated target that is adjustable in height, okay? Because it has to be adjusted on the after 7 a.m. impoundment and before the competition starts at 8. Okay? I'm an engineer. I ought to be able to figure this out, but I also have to do it cheaply. But it has to be fair.
Correct.
Oops.
So the best way I see would be to put your target on a piece of plywood, your sand on the plywood,
Yep.
and have maybe a couple bricks or something that you could put on the table underneath that when it needed to be lifted.
Yeah, that's a fair point. So we've already talked about how do you keep the sand on the table. It'll probably have edges. And yep. And I don't know, maybe an inch or 2 inches tall fences around the square meter to keep the sand on the table. Makes sense, right?
Yes.
If the ping pong ball hits the fence, that's the point at which we measure. I don't know any other way to do that fairly.
Honestly, the layer of sand doesn't have to be very thick at all. So like when we did ours, we put the plastic down and we just poured it on there and it's very thin. So I don't think you're going to have to worry about it, coming off of the table because you don't have to have it that deep. Because even a small thin layer still shows a divot.
Okay, that's good to know. So we'll make the fences probably no more than an inch tall.
Correct.
Yep. Okay. So go over some fundamentals for new coaches. Eye protection's required. It's a non-starter. It has to be worn by the students. And if I'm a supervisor, I'll insist that the supervisors also wear eye protection. It just if
But we can't close those gyms and all the lab events, I would throw all the kids. those- Because they have to have the closed those with the labs. So for this, like this.
So
you know,
I'm not sure you could hear her, Chris, but
I did. I don't think that's an issue. Closed toe shoes.
yeah, okay.
Because it was an issue with my,
Yeah.
our vice.
I think that should be left up to the coaches of each team because their kids are the only ones that are touching the devices, and I just think that should be left up to them.
Yeah, it is. I was being silly because my device in the past, the, 10-pound, weight would roll off of it. And now that the kids got to stand close to
Well,
London.
the other thing on the other side of that is you have to protect the floor. So if your device has a weight that's going to roll off, that's not going to be allowed anyway. So they're going to have to carry that in separately, so they don't damage someone else's floor. So if that's the case, the weight should be secured. So that should never be an issue with their feet either, because the weight should never be able to roll off like that. We wouldn't let them come in our gym like that.
Good point.
The only way we had is stop grass with something and tape it. Yeah, that's all we had. We didn't have a special weight. And it went and it fell over. I'm just.
And honestly, a 10-pound weight falling on a closed toe shoe or open toe shoe is going to have the same effect.
Yeah,
Okay. You can see that I use the slide from wheeled vehicles. So impound the device about 7 a.m. The spare parts, but the practice log needs to be impounded for their calibration data. All of their spare stuff, tools, repairs are not impounded. So I just found out this morning that kits are not available for this event for disadvantaged kids. But if you want to petition the UT for funds for a student that can't, or a school that can't fund it, please let us know. Okay. Devices must conform to the rules, even if we don't understand the rules yet. During the competition, I always enforce silence. There's no coaching from the side. The kids have to be able to do it themselves. That's only fair for the others. Now, if the device breaks and time allows, and I'm usually pretty liberal about allowing kids to fix their device. There's nothing worse than a kid crying because their device doesn't work. It's happened to me and I feel really bad. So I always allow a reasonable amount of time if the device breaks and they want to repair it.
Yeah.
I advise coaches to think about what might break and bring those, whatever it is, duct tape and baling wire does work. Okay. And no help from parents, no help from teachers. I've seen the kids and they're in pairs. They're the harshest critics of each other. They're fiercely competitive. They know what to do. It's an amazing thing to watch. the maturity, the organization, all the skills that I hire when I'm hiring kids, they learn cooperation, teamwork, working under pressure. All of these skills are lifelong skills that they need to cope with life and be contributors to society later. So that's amazing how that comes together at a young age, especially for middle schoolers. So that's why this is great. And any questions?
Oh.
No questions? Yes.
This is my first year. The first thing says a team up to 2. So if I was bringing a set of students, say 10, in a team, could we only have one entry in this, or could we have multiple?
No,
Multiple.
multiple.
Is
We
there
always
a-
have 3.
I don't think there's a maximum.
No.
Yes.
So impound starts at 7, and then you said sometime in between there, you're gonna announce like, do we know when you're gonna announce and how much time they'll have to calibrate?
They calibrate on the fly when they go to.
See,
Okay, so when does impounding end?
so it ends when their time to the line. So there's
Usually
sort of like
1 hour.
well, explain the 1 hour. Do they did they get their cars? See,
No.
I enforced that they could only get their car out of impound
to
at
compete.
the moment of the competition.
Correct. So we have always done, usually impound is from 7 to 8, and then competition starts at 8 or whatever the school that's doing it sets. Once it's impounded, they do not touch it again until they're ready to compete. That's when they're going to make their calibrations, because they're going to have to make a calibration when they change targets. That's all in their setup.
Yep.
So at 8 p.m., you will announce.
8 a.m.
8 a.m. you will announce the distances, and then they'll start the competition and calibrate at that time.
Mhm.
They calibrate when they're called to compete.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, they don't once it's impounded, they do not touch it again until it's their time to compete.
Yeah, and that clock starts, and they have 8 minutes to make the adjustments and launch. Is that correct, Chris?
Yeah, that is correct.
Yep.
So they get the 8 minutes before the near target.
If they use the 8 minutes for one shot, then that's all they get to one shot.
Oh, for the 8 minutes total, for the near, the far,
Yep.
and everything?
Yep.
Correct.
This is what I said about time pressures.
Also, some event supervisors will have them leave their devices or their logbooks there after their shots to reevaluate if needed.
And if they break it, in the repairs all have to happen in those time frames.
Correct.
It's just fair to the other competitors.
Once
Right.
if some yes, and across the whole thing, if something happens on the first part of the competition, they have to do it. Like if an event supervisor makes an adjustment, then they have to do the same thing for everybody throughout the competition.
Yes. Now, I will always defer to try and let a student compete. Okay. It's up to my judgment, but I feel like the kid competing and overcoming the circumstances is fair.
Agreed.
And so I have the discretion to make the rules at that time, but it has to be fair for all the competitors. Now, this is not a political event, so taking out your opponent is not allowed. So I like to see the kids compete. So I've actually given a kid time to go off and repair their vehicle or their device and come back for at the end of that round. If they can fix it by the end of the round,
Same here.
I'll allow them to compete. Okay.
I've also gave them tape and stuff to fix their devices.
Yep, but I encourage you to bring it.
Yep.
All right. There's the same thing in judging science fair. If you make the kid cry with your questions, you've failed as a judge. Okay. All right, so I think I've gone on. Be a good sport, be of good cheer, learn and congratulate, right? We want to
Correct.
we want to be encouraging adults, right? We do not want to be helicopter moms and dads. Okay? Have spare parts, repair parts, impound. See, I'm doing wheeled vehicle. They don't have to be impounded. I'll accommodate reasonable time to repair, and the coaches and parents can assist with the repairs. Okay. I will ask technical questions about the design and determine the student's participation in building the device. Okay. It has to be the child's work, not an adult's work.
I have a
But
question about what you just said.
yes,
Okay, did I hear you correctly when you just said that the parents or coaches can help with the repair?
yes, they can.
Okay, because just a few minutes ago you said no, so I agree. I think they should be able to as well. I just want to be clear on that.
If I did, I was mistaken.
Okay, okay,
They just can't help with the launching and
correct.
coaching during. You can't yell out, change the weight. You know, that's not fair. They have to know how their device works. And if they practice and written down their calibration logs, they certainly know how their device works, right? And
Yep,
you probably can't stop them from playing with it, right? They're
correct.
going to play with it. See how this works. All right, some sources online. I think this presentation is going to be available to all coaches. So but Science Olympiad, if you use those words, you'll be able to find whatever you need. Okay. There's stores for kits, and again, I think UT will subsidize some disadvantaged if you make a case for it. And any questions? So what I want to do is I'm going to go get Gabby because I want to run, especially for new ones. Go to go on the web and show you some YouTube videos.
Too much coffee.
Just go okay. Go to let's go to the web. How do I get to how do I get to YouTube?
Hey, I have a question while you're doing that.
Yeah, Chris.
On the table, the 3 to 4 foot high level on that for the first shot, does that really need to be adjusted, or is that the event supervisor that makes their decision if they want it to be 3 feet or 4 feet? Because we have never, you know, on Storm the Castle when we did that one, we would move our targets to different wherever between in the 2 meter increments. But on something like that, when it's a fixed target, I don't really think that the event supervisor should have to move that. It's either when they come in, it's either going to be at 3 feet or it's going to be at 4 feet.
So, Chris, I haven't read the rules fine enough
Okay.
to answer that, but I thought that it was adjusted just like the distances at the time of competition.
Okay. Well, so here's the thing. Every event that we've ever been to, as far as air trajectory, when they set up a target, the event supervisor at that event decides where they want it. Even at nationals, because we went to nationals, so even state and nationals, the event supervisor is going to pick, like when they do their announcement on where it's going to be. It's either going to be at 2 meters or it's going to be at 17 meters or whatever. It's going to be at 3 feet or it's going to be at 4 feet. So it's already set when we get there, and then they just tell us where they set it. So there shouldn't be an adjustment where you were talking about having to raise the table from 3 feet to 4 feet. It should already be set, because they're not going to, most of them, when you go, they're going to have a taped off square on the floor with a kitty litter on that. So that's not something that can easily be moved.
So I'll just, Chris, send you to 6 CII.
Okay.
And in the bold, it says there's regional, state, and national levels. And
Correct.
at regional, it's either, you're right, it's either a half meter or 1 meter above the ground.
Correct. So
And
they're gonna preset it to wherever they want.
Okay. So
In between.
No. Yep. What I was remembering, the distance to the target, there's a tolerance that can vary.
Correct.
Yep. Okay. That's good clarification, Chris. Thank you for that.
Yes, sir.
All right. Can Chris see my screen?
I can get it in just a second. If you'll pick out which video.
Yeah, we can replay these.
Okay, Chris, can you hear?
Yeah, I can hear and see.
Okay, perfect.
Wait.
This event is based off of trajectory, which was a catapult event. And what this event is using is air pressure to send a ball at an elevated target and then a grounded target.
Right there. Firing in 3, 2, 1.
See, that's not my
180.
You have to know your device really well in order to do well at the competition. So the more data you take, the more you're going to do.
And we did a lot of tests for each angle and each chain length to get our data analysis charts.
Oh, good. So it was
Yeah.
a lot of practice.
Yeah, a lot of practice.
Okay, so you saw on that one, holding the rope is not going to be allowed because it's not triggered by a number 2 pencil.
Correct.
Okay. So let's go back. Hit it again. And let's see. Let's try this one. This one's a short one. Can you see that one, Chris?
Yes.
See, their device, they can change the angle. So it's dramatic. See, they're practicing. So if the student wanted to build one of those, descriptions in the or the instructions are in the build.
Yep.
Now this one's a little longer, but
This is a good one right here.
okay. Chris has given his seal of approval.
I've just seen a lot
My
of.
name is Erin Martin. I'm with the Northern Guilford High School Varsity Science Olympiad team, and I want to describe my 2 designs for my 2015 and 2016 air trajectory events, which won first place. In my 2015 design, I decided to use a racquetball, which is more massive and is less affected by air currents. In my 2016 design, I used a ping pong ball. The barrel for the racquetball is a chain link fence corner post, which fits it perfectly. The barrel for the ping pong ball is a 1.5-inch PVC tube. Most designs have a mass falling onto a 2-liter bottle, but I wanted to have more volume of air going into the tube due to the heavier projectile. In the 5-gallon bucket, I have a beach ball that holds approximately 18 liters of air. Underneath it, there's fittings inside, which is just a sink drain, and it goes to a couple fittings underneath of PVC, and that attaches to the chain link fence corner post. I fill the air bladder using a trash bag full of air by cupping the opening around the thing and inflating it. Using a lidded container, I can adjust the mass, and using this nail and with drilled holes, I can adjust the height the mass drops. Using magnets on a plexiglass wall, I can adjust the angle and determine the angle using the string on the protractor. Let's see how it launches.
If you pull the string, that's not going to be allowed. So, I'm going to cut it short because we've run out of time. But all of those YouTube videos are available for study. So I encourage you to let the students figure out how they want to build their device. That'll give them some ideas. Okay. But as coaches, please enforce the number 2 pencil rule. Okay. All right. Thank you. Yeah, one more question.
I have one too.
Yes, that's right. And at impound, I'll measure to make sure they're within the rules. But I'll have one. I'll have the ability to measure it at impound.
I have one.
Go ahead.
Yeah. Okay. So in the rules, it states that the bladder basically has to return to ambient room pressure automatically, but not go back to the shape. So I fully understand this. My team fully understands this. But one thing that happened last year at our invitational, one of the schools used a foot pump like for an air mattress, and it blew the ball back up. And I questioned that one, but there is no diaphragm inside of the ball to keep the air in there. So basically, they're just like if they were to blow into the end of it. Like on one of the videos, it shows the girl, she takes a grocery sack and she catches the air and it puts it on the tube and squeezes it to blow the ball back up. So I think that's one thing that wasn't very clear last year, and we just need to make sure that it's clear this year that you can blow the air back in there. It just can't stay in there. It can't have something that traps it in. If that makes sense to if you understand what I'm saying.
It does.
Okay.
All right. Thank you very much.